And welcome back to an episode of the Cool Your Jets podcast. We're hosts Ben Blessington and Michael Nania. Michael, this is a victory podcast. Although it was an ugly victory, it certainly wasn't a pretty one. But hey, that's a necessary part of the process, I guess. And when you're trying to build a winning culture, you have to be able to prove that you can beat worse teams, and you have to prove that you can win games when not everything is perfect. And I'm pretty certain not everything was perfect today, especially when you look at the return of Zach Wilson, a bit of an up and down performance. Michael, what was your reaction to this win this Sunday? Because I felt like with the Titans and the Bengals games, we were pretty up, and that was a big celebratory podcast. This game, it's like, all right, they took care of business, but I don't feel the same level of excitement.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's completely fair to have a mixed reaction to this game. Winning is the most important thing, even for this team at this stage of the season, being eliminated from the playoff race. I still think winning is the most important thing, just because,
Hey, they're not eliminated yet.
which is true, and they're only a game and a half out of the in the hunt graphic. I saw they had Miami up there on the Red Zone channel, and they're 5-7, so that is also in play. But even so, I think wins are most important because you're trying to establish this culture, get these young players used to winning, used to establishing good habits, building momentum into next year. I think the wins are very important. But at the same time, from a development standpoint, which is more important than the wins, the most important player that you're trying to develop is Zach Wilson. And he obviously did not have a good game in his return. So I think it is fair to have a mixed reaction because of Zach Wilson's performance. But at the same time, I think outside of Wilson, most of the rest of the team played pretty well. And there was a lot of stuff to like. And this team won a road game. They won a game they were down by double digits and had nothing going. It's just two things that a winning team needs to be able to do that this team has not been able to do for a long time. So for the most part, I think Jets fans should be happy. I definitely enjoyed watching it and felt good coming out of it. Feel good right now as we're recording this, but it also is subdued a little bit because of Wilson's struggles.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm still at the point where I would rather Zach Wilson lights it up and the Jets lose, just because he plays the most important position on the team. But you're right. I mean, look, this team is never going to turn it around. I mean, we've been stuck in this continual rebuild, and cheering for losses and cheering for the tanks and individual players to play well. But this team's never going to turn it around unless they start getting wins. Look at any sort of improving team. It's normally incremental progress. There are very rare examples where a team goes from picking second overall to playoffs. It's normally like they pick second overall and then they win 6 or 7 games and they get a wild card spot and then they're content, whatever. That's the type of process that I guess you would hope the Jets would have. And this is also an example of, look, the Texans are a worse team than the Jets. I think they proved that today. The Jets should beat the Texans, and they did beat them. But you talk about Zach Wilson, and he was better in the second half, but he was not great. I mean, all day he kind of seemed a bit inaccurate. It seems like he was still processing things. It was taking him a longer than what we saw with Mike White, Josh Johnson, or Joe Flacco. I think he did a better job of going to the checkdowns. But yeah, it wasn't a perfect day by any stretch. I mean, as Drew from Jersey on Twitter pointed out, look, his numbers would be a lot better if Ryan Griffin didn't drop that touchdown, or Elijah Moore didn't slip, or Braxton Berrios, took that 50-yard play to the end zone. But also he got bailed out by a few, plays where, one, he fumbled, and Austin Walter had the hustle play of the day by knocking that ball out of the end zone. And then he had the interception that flew right out of Houston's hands. So, this is a very rookie-esque performance. And I guess a lot of Jets fans, myself included, were really hoping that, a month off, he could come back and really start to put a stamp on a positive rookie season. It still seems like we're going to have that up and down Josh Allen type rookie season. Michael, what did you see from Zach Wilson today? Is there anything that you're walking away encouraged by, or are you mostly discouraged because there's been that long break and we were hoping for that big second half surge?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that there's no reason to overreact because it is just one game. It is his return after a long absence. And this is even just the whole rookie season body of work, regardless of what he does the rest of the year. It can affect, your outlook, how you feel about him. But no matter what he does, he can't be written off because we've seen so many rookie seasons where quarterbacks have been absolutely terrible and then they turn it around because that's just what rookies do. That is generally the worst season of a quarterback's career by a wide margin. So overreacting is not something that should be done about this game or any game that he has going forward. But at the same time, for me personally, watching this game, I don't have anything positive to say about it, honestly. I think it's good that he bounced back somewhat in the second half and was a little bit more stable, took a few more safer throws that he wasn't even getting in the first half, but he still had, that one pick that was dropped near his own end zone, the pass into the flat that he airmailed. So even in the second half, there were some mistakes. There just weren't, other than the Ryan Griffin pass, which was a fantastic play, easily his best of the game. Um, that was about it in terms of, money throws. And then there were so many mistakes in terms of accuracy, decision making. One of them I know that we disagree on a lot, but there were still quite a few mistakes. So I don't have much positive to say about this one. I think it was a bad game, but at the same time, it's not worth overreacting to. First game back, still 6 starts to go for him to build some momentum.
Yeah, the interception, the little flip to Ty Johnson that hit him in the back, and then I think I was pretty defensive on that, and that's not me saying that Wilson had a good performance. That was even a good play. I think this was a pretty up and down performance, more so bad or more so down performance. I would say C minus, and if they didn't get the win, it would be probably more in the D category. But that interception, I thought I thought a lot of people were overreacting, yourself included, Michael. People were acting like that was a huge indictment on Zach Wilson's development. I mean, look, the reason the Jets drafted him, or not the reason, but one of the reasons the Jets drafted him is his playmaking ability. In his last game, he got a very similar play on third down, and he flipped it to Ty Johnson. He gets the first down. I'm not going to beat up a rookie quarterback coming off a knee injury thinking that Ty Johnson has a higher chance of getting a 3rd and 17 than he does. And also when he flips the ball, Ty Johnson's looking. So, I mean, if I have to take those type of interceptions, I'll take them every single day of the week over him rifling it into triple coverage like he did against New England or any of the other, or even the fumbles or the inaccurate passes that he's had. That play, it's like those are the types of interceptions that Mahomes and Josh Allen or Brett Favre had. It's like that's just what you get with that style of play. Is it like embarrassing? Does it make the folly real? Yes. But is that the biggest deal in the world to me? No. Like I really didn't care about that interception at all. It was just like unfortunate, but honestly, in my eyes, it's more on Ty Johnson. It wasn't Zach Wilson. But with that being said, I thought Zach Wilson otherwise wasn't that great in this game. I mean, the inaccuracy is the biggest thing. The ball placement is the most concerning part of it, because even some of the nice plays, even some of the first downs, he was throwing low, or the 4th down to Keelan Cole, he threw it behind him in low.
Yep.
I mean, his inaccuracy, he's just been inaccurate, plain and simple, which is not something we necessarily expected. When the Bills drafted Josh Allen, that was in the scouting report, was that he was inaccurate. And as we saw with Josh Allen, it improved as he got more comfortable in the NFL. But in college, Wilson was accurate. So I don't necessarily know what's happening. Dan Orlovsky said in his interview with DJ Bieneme, he basically said that he's guiding the ball, which you can kind of see. The one game I went to against New England, I kind of took that same, I'm not no QB expert, but I kind of saw the same thing what he's talking about, where he's trying to force every single ball and place it perfectly with his arm. It's almost like he's extending and reaching out with his arm instead of just letting it fly, instead of flicking it like he did it at BYU. And when you do that, you get into trouble. I was underwhelmed with him today. I mean, but I wasn't like, it wasn't complete disaster mode. It's just been kind of more of the same. It was the same quarterback we saw a month ago. Maybe he took a few more checkdowns, but maybe not the big boom that we were hoping for, although there are still plenty of games left in the season. Darnold's big boom was really the last 4 games. And statistically it was really, the last game against New England, he didn't do too much, although his film was relatively impressive, but Wilson still has plenty of times to put a positive feel on his rookie season. He still has plenty of games to do that. I guess would have been convenient if it was the pre-injury and the post-injury Zach Wilson, but that doesn't really seem to be the case. This wasn't an awful performance. Where would you rank it in terms of his other 6 starts?
I think is definitely not as bad as Atlanta or New England, but probably below the rest. I think Carolina and Tennessee.
Denver.
I mean, for me personally, I thought the Denver game was not as bad as some people thought, because there were a couple of good plays that he had dropped, like the one interception to Berrios. There's a really good throw he made to Davis that was dropped in the beginning. Definitely bad, but I don't think it was as bad as this one. So I'd probably put this 4th out of his 6 starts so far. But talking back about that interception, I hear what you're saying. And when you slow it down, you can kind of see that when he makes the decision, Ty Johnson is looking. I guess for me, I just feel like it was still kind of a reckless decision because he kind of already tucked the ball. Johnson, was committing to block because he thought that he saw Wilson going to run. So it was kind of a split second decision. And it was 3rd and 15. And Johnson did have a defender pretty close. So either way, it wasn't whether he scrambled or gave it to Johnson, didn't seem like it was a likely situation. So I just kind of thought it was not the best risk to take in that situation. But I do hear what you're saying, and you can't see it on the film. But in terms of the accuracy, the thing that I think is worrisome is that, because like you said, he was accurate in college. We know he can do it. We know physically it's there and he has that ability. It's not like Josh Allen, where he had never been accurate in his life going back to high school, and you knew you had to develop that. So you knew that physically it had to be developed mechanically. With Zach Wilson, we know he can do it. So the fact that he's not in the NFL and is struggling with it so much just comes down to, the yips, just being under the spotlight on the field. It's not there, just being locked into the game, being able to play freely and play the way he wants to, that he played to the level that he's capable of. That's what's worrisome to me, is because that's something that you can't, teach or coach out necessarily. Like, you can work with Josh Allen on his mechanics, his footwork, the positioning of his elbow, where he's releasing the ball, all these things. You can teach him that and work on it, but you can't really work on, everyone just always says, the quote is, just play, just throw the ball. Like, it's easy to say that, but it's not something that you can just teach and work on. It's something that's got to come with time, and it absolutely could, but will it happen? We don't know. We're just going to have to watch his career play out. So that's really the biggest thing about his development, is we know the ability's there. It's just, is he ever going to be able to acclimate into the league and play freely and play without overthinking so he can maximize his abilities? We're just going to have to wait and see if that happens.
Yeah, he doesn't look ready is my biggest takeaway. Like, every time he drops back, I'm holding my breath. I mean, because it is really a concern that, when he throws it deep, and I'm not saying we've had too many great examples of this, I feel a lot better than him just doing the routine stuff. When he's scrambling out of the pocket and throwing downfield, I'm not saying it's always been a good result, but I feel like it just looks better. But when he's asked to just do the simple stuff, it's like I'm holding my breath. And, I had more confidence in this point in Darnold, which is, I guess, slightly concerning. But like you said, you brought up Josh Allen. He had that steep development curve. Is that the expectation or the norm? Definitely not. You're a big analytic guy, Mike. I would imagine the amount of quarterbacks that have had Zach Wilson's stat line over the first 7 games have not panned out in the NFL. But at the same time, we kind of knew that this was going to be the development. I mean, in our BYU podcast, it was, the takeaway was that he was going to have a Josh Allen type rookie season, that he was raw, that he needs time to develop, that Jets have to be patient with him. And I guess, this fan base, can't blame him, is not patient right now because they've been so bad. And Zach Wilson, quite frankly, just doesn't look the part right now. But the only option to proceed from here is they have to just be patient with him, because he's going to get at least 2 seasons and probably 3 seasons. I mean, cutting him short after 2 seasons would be pretty crazy. But, Joe Douglas is tied to him. And so he's the Jets quarterback. And so I'm not saying you can't criticize him, but I think Jets fans have to be a little less trigger happy on shooting him to the moon, because he's the Jets quarterback. I mean, that's just the way things are right now. I will say, you brought up that you didn't necessarily mention it on the podcast. When we went a little, we don't disagree that often, Mike. We're very much on the same page a lot of the times. In fact, it would probably be better for the podcast if we disagreed more. But going back to this interception, you had talked about how Darnold had kind of that same playmaker type of, you call it reckless, and I would agree with that. It can be at times reckless. I think there's a big difference between Darnold, launching that grenade ball in 2019 against the Dolphins and the goal line than what Zach Wilson did. I don't think a 2-yard shovel pass to your running back on 3rd and 17 is necessarily super reckless. I don't feel like that's what, I don't know. I just feel like that play I so don't care about. And I think that's going to be the big sticking point, is that interception. Whereas the fumble that he got away with, or the dropped interception, or the inaccuracy, that to me is way more concerning. That interception, it's like, that's a nothing to me on my radar. It's a negative play, but it's really just not anything to me. And I just feel like That play, I just feel like I had to say that play got so much overreaction to it that it was jarring to me that nobody was able to look at it and be like, look, I mean, it's just the context of the situation is bad. I guess the fact that he's returning, we're all excited. We've seen Mike White operate this offense and we're trying to watch him play boring football and he does that. But, if you just zoom out a little bit, it's like, all right, you tried to give it to his running back to make a play and his running back turned around. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I just gotta stop tweeting so much in the middle of games because it's like the opposite of how I try to watch football. Like what I do is I take the whole week and I watch some film, analyze numbers from many different websites, and just look at things from so many different angles. But in the middle of the game, it's so heat of the moment. You're trying to make these overarching takes on the future of the franchise based on every single play. So I definitely hear what you're saying. I'm a little more critical of it than you. I still think is slightly reckless, but I hear what you're saying, and it definitely got a little bit too much overreaction. But I did less tweeting during the game this time. I think I only had like 8 tweets.
I like to see the
me.
reaction. I like to see the reaction, the instant reaction, and then the 6-day long rationalization. I kind of like that process. Because I've certainly said things during game that when you look back, it's like, all right, that's not really the reality. Did you feel comfortable with his second half performance? I guess he had the fumble, but outside of that, I did feel like he was much better. The accuracy were still there. The Jets clearly didn't trust him at the end of the game, running 3 straight times and settling for the field goal. But it did feel like the offense was moving like it had been the last few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just not as high on the second half improvement, I guess, as a lot of other people are. I mean, he was a little bit safer. He did make, some good safe throws and key spots.
He came out of the gates throwing 2 downfield passes.
And he did make those 2 throws to Moore to start the second half. So he was definitely better. I don't think there's any questioning that, but it's just, was he good or did he just go from atrocious to below average? I think that's kind of more what the elevation was, which I guess is progress and you take it however you can get it. But I think the bar still, even right now as a rookie, should still be even higher than where it was in that second half.
But how much do you think your perspective changes on this? If let's just say the Ryan Griffin one, which we can both agree should have been a touchdown. They did end up getting a touchdown on that drive, if I'm not mistaken. That was the one where he ran it in. If he has that play and that's completed and we can all walk away with that highlight, do you feel like the evaluation of his performance in this fan base is a lot different? Because I do. I think this fan base is so reactionary that one play, his performance in the game in reality when it was dropped versus if in this made up world that it was caught doesn't change at all. But I think the perception of his performance would be quite different.
Yeah, and that's more just an indictment on how fans and people in general evaluate it. Because for me, and I know for you as well, we know that happened and we take it into account regardless of the fact that it wasn't caught. And then we also got the cool bonus of him making that great running play 2 plays later. So we kind of got 2, even though the first one didn't count.
Right.
Because it was dropped. So I think the perception definitely changes. Obviously, his passer rating goes way up because he gets the touchdown, which the rushing touchdown doesn't affect. So just that one number changes a lot. It definitely would change based on that.
Right.
And then he also did get some breaks in his own favor as well. Like you said, the fumble didn't get recovered. Berrios made a huge play for him that was well above what you would expect to get in that situation. So there's a mix of things.
And the dropped interception, the one that flew through Berrios' hands. And yeah. So, I mean, I guess these were the types of performances we were expecting at the outset of the season, but they're still kind of hard to watch when your expectations are so high. But if we didn't have the backdrop of the first few weeks and the nightmarish starts and then watching Mike White come in, if this was, week 1 or week 2, I don't know. I feel like there's some good in this game to take away from, like you mentioned. The inaccuracy in ball placement to me is the only thing that I'm really concerned about at this point. I think the processing will get better. I think him get into the checkdowns will get better. I'm not really worried about that turnover, but the accuracy is the one to me that I'm like, oh boy, that. And, like you said, the yips, if it's a mental thing, even if, and this is getting so far ahead of our skis here, but just to play, there's a podcast. We talk about the Jets. There's only so much you can talk about. Let's say Zach Wilson does get it together and he does start to get more confident and he puts together a nice regular season. Does he then get the yips in his first playoff game? Does he then get the yips in a Super Bowl or something like that? You have to worry about that. If we're worried about him being mentally not ready for New York, which was a big talking point that we all kind of brushed aside, that is something to take into account. I don't think in 7 games you can make that determination. I think that's more of a multi-season things, but you're right. It's been clear multiple times this season that he's been mentally spinning or seemed nervous or hadn't settled in. Is that just a rookie thing for Zach Wilson, or is that a Zach Wilson thing? If you're going off college, that wouldn't be the case, but it's something to keep an eye out on.
There is one positive actually that came to mind for me for his game. I do think you can look at this game. I don't really feel like he forced too much. I think you can feel like he did a better job of, okay, let's play it safe. Was the timing great? No, not necessarily always. Sometimes he could have maybe dumped it off faster, gone through his reads a little bit quicker. But for the most part, I don't think he took shots he necessarily shouldn't have. He did. This was probably going to be one of his lower games in terms of the average depth of his targets, maybe the lowest, which I think is a good thing. So I think that's at least one positive. There's some stuff to build off of in that aspect.
Right. And it's also, he's gotten into trouble forcing it, especially after making a bad play or being down 7-0 to start a game or so. The Jets faced some adversity. We're down 14-3. He had obviously had that interception. He had some adverse moments, and he didn't force the ball down the field. The biggest thing for him, and I noticed it the most on third down, is because I think in this game he was doing a better job of staying ahead of the sticks on first and second down. But on third down, if it's 3rd and 10, or hell, even 3rd and 8, you don't have to throw beyond the sticks. And I feels like he's constantly thinking that he has to throw beyond the first down mark. I think he got better in the second half of doing this, because you saw Mike White do it constantly. It would be a 3rd and 12, and he would just dump it off to Ty Johnson, and Ty Johnson would get the first. Because part of the beauty of this offense is it does scheme up some of those checkdowns to have a lot of open space in front of him. So I think the biggest thing is on third down, you don't have to throw it. You could throw it 5 yards. You could just dump it off, or you can throw it a 6-yard pass on a 3rd and 13 and see if Jamison Crowder can get the first. You can make those types of plays. And I think that's something that he is going to get better on as the season goes on. There was actually a really interesting talking point, and my Twitter mentions exploded from this, and I don't think I've seen your takes. I would like to get your opinion. Obviously, friend of the podcast, DJ Bieneme, had tweeted out that he thinks his ceiling for Zach Wilson is Derek Carr. And I vehemently disagree with it. And I think there should be an important point to make right here before we continue any further. Ceiling is not comparison. Ceiling is the best. If you take all of his traits and the best possible quarterback that can come out of those traits, what would that comparison be? And I don't think that's Derek Carr. I mean, if you think it's Derek Carr, who is a good quarterback, who's had a great season, as far as if his career turns out to be Derek Carr, I'm not upset with that. I'm content with that, but if his ceiling is Derek Carr, he probably isn't going to hit his ceiling. Then I think that's a negative thing to take away. Michael, what do you think about the Derek Carr ceiling comparison? And what do you think his ceiling is? Has it changed much for you from the draft? Because my thinking was like, 7 games isn't enough to change his ceiling for me, which at the draft was that Rodgers Mahomes type of quarterback. It's tough to compare him to 2 of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. I'm not doing that. But if you're taking the traits that the Jets drafted him so high for, that is his ceiling. We'll see where he ends up. It's like shoot for the moon, you'll end up in the stars. But what do you think about that Carr ceiling?
I agree. I had the same reaction, because him struggling should not change what his ceiling is. Because like you said, ceiling is best case scenario. So just because he's not playing well now, which of course lowers his odds of getting to that point, it doesn't change what that point is, because the ceiling is based on his profile as a player. And that doesn't change just because he's not playing well, because he still has ridiculous arm strength, great mobility, the ability to create those off schedule plays, all those things
that loose
that,
arm.
And the loose arm, the arm angles, all that stuff that, let's look at the other guy in the ACs. Mac Jones is playing fantastic right now. He's playing great football. Is his ceiling as high as Zach Wilson's? I still don't think so. That's not to say that obviously right now is Mac Jones substantially better? Yes. Are his odds of being good for the foreseeable future much better? Yes. But best case scenario, everything works out perfectly. Zach Wilson's ceiling is much higher than Derek Carr. That's for sure. I think it's still fair to say he has Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes type of ability because he does. And that's the type of prospect that he was coming out
Right.
of. I think realistically low floor guy, which we're seeing right now, but the ceiling is still high. And you not playing well does not change what your ceiling is. But I think in terms of Derek Carr, like if you're talking about skill level, in terms of like play style, they're not the same at all. Derek Carr has zero mobility. He's an inside the pocket guy. They're not similar players at all. But in terms of skill level production, Derek Carr
Stats,
is
yeah.
probably like like borderline top 10 guy. Then definitely not ceiling still, but is that maybe where Wilson ends up? Is that a more realistic place for him to be? Maybe. I think you can make that argument if Wilson's always going to struggle with turnovers, like is he going to continue making those reckless plays, but he figures out the rest of his game? Maybe that is where he settles in around Derek Carr range. So, but in terms of ceiling, I definitely think there's no reason you should move off of the potential that he can be one of those top three type of special talent quarterbacks. Now, are the odds that he gets there lower now than they maybe felt like at the beginning of the season? Probably, because he has struggled, I think, more than any of us anticipated. But I'd still think that possibility is there.
Yeah, I think you laid it out perfectly. That was my way of thinking. And then all of a sudden I had 20 people in my mentions thinking I was comparing him to Aaron Rodgers. I think it's a very low probability he hits that, but you still have to. I don't think his ceiling, like you said, changes after 7 games. The Jets drafted the number 2 overall because his ceiling was higher than any other in the draft class outside of maybe Trey Lance. And look, you see kind of glimpses of it. Like he had that, I think it was maybe a second down. They were inside their own 10 where he did that sidearm pass to Elijah Moore that almost got intercepted, but he rifled it in there like 90 miles an hour. And you kind of see those Mahomes type of plays. And obviously he had the scramble out to Ryan Griffin. He has those flashy plays. You could go to the Tennessee game if you want to see more of them. But for him, it's the consistency. I think the big moment for him in my eyes is going to be week 1 next year. And maybe that's a bit unfair, but I think do you agree with that is the time where if you're going to do it, you have to see a sizable lead. I mean, I guess Josh Allen and his week 1, week 2, year 2 was against the Jets. They had like 4 turnovers. So maybe that's a bit hyperbole, but I just feel like you're going to have to hope you see that big jump in between seasons because you're not likely to get it mid-season. I think he can maybe catch fire and start to do some good things, but you're hoping to see him come out next year and be a lot more proficient with the football, to be hitting, in schedule, just hitting those checkdowns, going through the offense. And, by that point, the offense will be second nature. He'll have a whole nother offseason, etc. But for him, it just feels like he's not in rhythm. He's not on time. A lot of times where it seems like even if the protection's holding up, that he's doesn't know where to go. He's still processing. There's some issues that you think will get ironed out in between seasons. For right now, it's like, I guess the best case scenario is that he hits those checkdowns more in time and the ball placement gets a little bit better. But I don't think that big jump comes until year 2, hopefully.
Right. I agree with you. And are we going to write him off if he doesn't play well in his first game? No, but that's kind of the feeling that I've gotten watching him this year is that we're going to have to wait until next year to see that big leap because, what is he struggling with right now? Accuracy is the main thing. And if you're going to fix your mechanics, you kind of need the whole offseason to really hammer that down, especially as a rookie quarterback. You're trying to get acclimated with the scheme and everything mentally and just the whole whirlwind of being an NFL quarterback. The mechanical stuff has to come in the offseason when you have months and months to iron that out. So that's sort of the feeling that I've had as well, that we're going to have to wait until next year to see if we can get a completely different Zach Wilson. Not that there's still aren't things that he can improve right now, but for him to truly elevate, it's probably going to have to wait till next year. And again, it's not like first game he's bad, that elevation isn't happening. Because like you said, Josh Allen.
That was your reaction, though, to Darnold last year, though, right? I remember that was like after week
year
1.
Three, though.
That was year 3. Okay, so year 3, week 1 is the last cutoff.
But I did the second game against the Niners, I thought was actually his best game of that season. I did think he played well in that one, but then he came out in the Colts game the next week and was really bad. And that's when I was officially burying him.
Okay. So week 3, year 3.
But on the Wilson note, yeah, it's like we're not going to overreact the first game, but 2 games, 3 games, we should be able to get a good feel for, is he a different quarterback here in year 2? Because that's what Josh Allen kind of did. And look, Josh Allen wasn't good in his second year. I still don't think,
I
but
disagree
he was
with that.
close to. I think he's close to average. Whereas
Oh, no, no, no. Over
look at his numbers.
Yeah,
Look at his
well, you,
numbers.
you have to look at more than the numbers. His numbers may come out to average, but his playmaking clearly flashed like, oh, this guy's legit. You were not that high on year two, Allen, but I just think it's like, oh yeah, you look at his
I
numbers,
was
it's like,
never a Josh Allen fan at
yeah,
all.
but he had that hurdle and he over Kendricks, and obviously he had, he took him to the playoffs. He had a few of those big time plays where you could see
A
those
playoff game
flashes.
in which he threw a lateral to nobody.
And same, hey, that's the Zach Wilson playmaking ability right there. Well, he had those flashes, and those flashes, more importantly, became more consistent because he had some of those flashes his rookie year, like Wilson. But then in year two, you saw a few of them every game
Yeah.
instead of just like one every game. And then you
Yeah.
started to see it multiple good games in a row. And then, he'd have his bad games, his numbers would dip a little bit. And then it was year three where it was like, oh, this guy's consistently, bringing that playmaking.
Right. And that's really the point I'm making. Like, it's just about the size of the leap because Allen in his rookie year was, comparable to what Wilson is doing now, maybe even worse in terms of the accuracy. But year two, he's an average-ish quarterback who's winning games, and that is a massive leap. And then he took the same size jump in the third year up to elite status. So I think that's what you want to see because it was clear, even though Allen wasn't quite there yet, that he was a different quarterback in that second year. Because even think about that game he played against the Jets to open 2019. He was fairly safe. He obviously hit the deep touchdown later to bring him back into it, but he had some good runs. And even though he turned the ball over a lot, he was fairly composed. In his rookie years, he was very much a backyard football player who was running all over the place, taking deep shots one after the next. And you could see pretty quickly in his second season that he wasn't that, even though there still was room to go. He improved a lot of the things he needed to improve. So that's the goal. And so I agree with what you said. We are going to have to wait until next year to really see how his development is coming along.
Right. I hope we get all I want is I just want those highlight plays that we can tweet at other fan bases, specifically Jaguars fans for Trevor Lawrence or Bills fan. Like, just give us more highlight plays. I'll take the ugly lateral interceptions, but I just want a few more highs before we go out of the season. And he has plenty of games to do that. Darnold caught fire at the last four, so it can happen midseason. But yeah, I just want some highlight plays from him. And then you could take that leap in the offseason. But hey, it's not like any of the other rookie quarterbacks are lighting it up. That would make it a lot harder. Fields was I guess Mac Jones is having a great year, but he was never a realistic option for the Jets at 2. Let's not play revisionist history. They could have had Trevor Lawrence. They didn't get him. He's been equally as bad. They could have drafted Justin Fields at 2. They didn't. He's been up and down as well. And then Trey Lance hasn't hit the field. So, it's not like that makes it a little bit better, I guess. But we'll see. Speaking of the draft, I mean, we're at the point where we're cheering for wins. Is there any part of you, though, that this Texans win was maybe the most costly in terms of if the Jets were going to land the number 2 pick or something? There's no part of you that cares about the draft.
No, which is a little bit different for me, especially last year. I was very pro tank, but this year I'm still all in for wins, looking for some victories every week. Not really thinking about the tanking effects.
Okay, I think I probably won't be in the tank bandwagon until we get. It just depends on things shake up. I think they pick up a win against the Dolphins and the Jaguars. I think they're going to lose the next 2, beat the Dolphins, the Jaguars, and then lose the last 2. Which would put them probably picking like what, 6th, the vaunted 6th pick that the Jets seemingly have had every single year. So that's kind of where I think they'll end up, which is maybe, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but Derek Stingley, Evan Neal, Karlaftis, the edge, something like that. But we have a lot of podcasts to do before we get to that point. Outside of Zach Wilson, though, and this is kind of to your point, why you're happy to cheer for them, because look, Gase you wanted him out of there. So you wanted the team to bottom out. You're looking for a quarterback, but this is year 1 with Saleh trying to instill a culture and a program. I thought the team looked I thought they looked really well, especially in the trenches. That was the most impressive part to me, that this defensive line had a real big bounce back game, especially John Franklin Myers finally having that marquee performance since the big contract extension. I know he's had some good games, but he needed this type of performance to get that whole contract whispers. The Jets overpay him. Did they pay him too soon? They got that off their back. He had a great game all playing edge and not having to play inside. Super impressed with him. And then, yeah, I thought the offensive line did a great job opening up running lanes. Didn't have Michael Carter, and it didn't seem to matter. Obviously, Carter would have had a great performance behind that offensive line, but Austin Walter came in, looked like he was shot out of the cannon a few times. Same with Coleman, same with Johnson. I just thought the Jets won this game in the trenches, and that is going to be their recipe to winning football for this culture. I mean, when you're looking at the Jets a year or two from now, you're going to assume it's because they dominated the trenches like they did today. So I was really happy with the rest of the team outside of Zach Wilson.
Yeah, I agree. I think obviously defensively there's a lot of great stuff, but even on offense, I don't have too much to complain about besides Wilson. The run game was really consistent between three different guys who were carrying the ball. The O-line I thought was very solid. In the run game, there were some hiccups in pass protection, but it felt like most of those were just not that it matters less, but just communication things with pickups, things of that nature. But when when Wilson was dropping back, it felt like the protection was pretty good. The O-line was solid. Receivers made some good catches for Wilson on passes that were less than perfect. And I feel like LaFleur overall, there wasn't that much that he did that I didn't like. Besides, I thought they should have taken a shot on that last third down play. It was a long 3rd and goal, but I thought they could have taken a shot there. Besides that, there was still some more creativity, getting Josh Johnson in there, the 2-point conversion. For the most part, I did like what LaFleur did as well. So offensively, there's a lot of good stuff. Then even defensively, they settled in after a really bad start. Hall got off to a bad start, but in the trenches, they were dominant. The run defense was finally solid. And the pass rush did what it should do against the Houston Texans offensive line, and it was mainly led by JFM and Q, which is exactly what you want because those two guys are your anchors for the future. So
right.
A lot of positive stuff outside of quarterback.
Well, I don't blame. I mean, you would have liked to see them go win the game with Zach Wilson, but I think you have to remember we're watching it for the long-term view of the team and their development, but Robert Saleh is coaching it for the now and trying to win the game. And look, when they're, you saw with Matt Nagy on Thursday, Thanksgiving, it's like, if you can, and not that the Jets iced the game in this situation, but it's like, if you can for sure go up a touchdown instead of putting your rookie quarterback in that situation where he has to, if he rifles it into the end zone, it gets intercepted, and now the Texans can win it with a touchdown. I mean, they were playing smart football there. I would have liked to see them throw it on maybe earlier in the sticks, but once you get to 3rd and long, it's like, okay, I guess you run it and go up 7, and then you play defense. And he trusted his defense that had been dominant all second half, and it worked out for him. I thought LaFleur had a great performance. Like you said, I think he did a good job of getting creative when things weren't working. I think that it was the touchdown drive that Walter ended up scoring. A lot of misdirection. He got the ball into Elijah Moore's hands. He did a much better job. And you have to remember, LaFleur's confidence is up after the last few weeks, because I think in the first few weeks, Wilson, it's been the story all season long, starting slow. And you've seen him get better as the game goes on in pretty much every single game. But this one, he was able to do it a little bit sooner. And I think you have to give LaFleur credit. I think his confidence is up after the last few games. He was in his bag a little bit. He's in the booth now. I think he did well, like you said. And I think the only other, player on offense that you can really, or position group in offense that you can really criticize is tight end. This offense will look so much better when they have 2 legitimate tight ends, not just one. They need a legit stud tight end and some good depth there as well. So that's a number one position that they need to target in the draft or free agency. Hopefully both, honestly, because that Ryan Griffin touchdown is a touchdown. The Ryan Griffin catch where he caught it and then somehow didn't get the first down.
Oh my God. That one
moving
made
in
me
slow motion.
It's like, yes, we got it. Nice job, Zach. Wait, what did he just do?
He just, every time he gets the ball, it looks like somebody was tweeting, I forget exactly who tweeted it, but it was basically like, oh, I caught it. What do I do now? I mean, he literally he carries his whole body with the ball and just kind of rolled over. They need a stud at tight end. And also it affects the blocking as well. So tight end, it needs a major upgrade. Quarterback, you're hoping you're to see the strides, but I thought LaFleur did well. I thought the offensive line looks a hell of a lot better. Elijah Moore is a legit stud. And the running backs, like you said, I mean, all 3 of them had solid days. And I think Austin Walters definitely showing that Lamichael Pirines' time with this team is coming to an end. Not to say that Walter is the future of the running back position, but the fact that he couldn't even get activated, they activate this guy out the practice squad, and Walter comes in and has a great performance. So he's not going anywhere soon the next few weeks. So yeah, Pirines definitely done for this team. But defensively, yeah, I thought Quincy Williams has been such an upgrade over Gerard Davis. You just see the difference in the defense. Even though he makes some mistakes, yeah, I know he got hurt this game, so we did see Davis towards the end of it. Even though he makes some mistakes, those high level plays are getting more and more consistent. He's such a fun player to watch. It seems like he's always around the ball. Mosley had a nice game, I felt. So overall, I was really, really happy with the defense's bounce back performance. Now, look, they're playing the second worst team in the entire NFL. So it's not like, they did what they were supposed to do. If you can't do that against the Texans, then there's some real big concerns. But hey, this team for a long time has not done what they're supposed to do. They are finally on the winning end of a few games this season. We'll take it. They've already passed their season win total from last year. So you can't, not too much to complain about. And like I said, I think they're going to beat the Dolphins, and I think they're going to beat the Jaguars. I know the Dolphins are a bit of a hot stretch right now, so maybe that's a hot take. But unfortunately for them, I don't see them beating the Eagles next week. Not that the Eagles are some sort of powerhouse. Obviously they're at home. They can do it. Maybe Zach Wilson has a good game, but the Eagles are very good on the offensive line, and I think that's going to just nerf their entire defense. And then offensively, defensively for the Eagles, they have a great secondary, and I think that kind of worries me with Zach Wilson. But we'll see how things go. I'm trying to think if there's anything else we want to touch on before we get out of here, Michael. Is there anything that's on your mind?
I guess there was some key special team stuff.
Amendola with another miss.
Done? Man had a shank. Yeah, I know I was kind of defending Amendola. Don't give up on him. He has the power, but at this point, he has gotten too costly to where I think that now you realistically start looking at bringing up what's the name of the guy they just had to the practice squad?
No clue. I've
great research here.
I'll get it. Hold on. I'll get it. You keep stalling.
The Chargers guy. He was on the Chargers, right?
Alex Kessman.
There we go. Yeah, I think now you could realistically think about it. Give him a chance based on what he does in practice.
They probably had a competition in practice all week, right? He was on the practice field, so they probably did see a little bit of him.
But I think this is probably the week where you really take it seriously.
Right. I think you probably give Kessman a shot. I think you keep Amendola around because I do like his ceiling as a kicker, like any other position. I think he has a lot of potential. He's just, he's a double barrel shotgun, and his accuracy, especially on some of those kicks that he really should make. I wasn't kicking him last week for missing the 55-yarder, but obviously he missed the closer one, and this week he, could have definitely cost the Jets another game. I think you keep him around. I think maybe you bring him in training camp to battle with somebody else that you sign. But yeah, I think you're right. I think you have to make the switch. And it's a bummer about Mann because Morstead was very solid for this team. And Mann is a bit of a downgrade. I mean, he did have that great punt at the end of the game that Hardy couldn't down at the one. So I guess you should give him credit for that. But yeah, like you said, I think they're going to make some big shakeups at special teams. Oh, one last thing. I guess I've kind of felt like, and maybe this was just me, I kind of felt like Robert Saleh was a tad more aggressive this game. Did you agree with that? I felt like in some of the coaching, they went for 2 a little early. They went for it on 4th and 6 and 4th and 1. They were calling timeouts at the end of the half to try to get the ball back. I just kind of felt like outside of the last drive where he opts for the field goal, because that's, very conservative. Outside of that, I felt like he was coaching maybe a more aggressive game than we had seen when it comes to some of those game management stuff.
Yeah, I agree. And I sort of, when we brought up Amendola, I thought about that because there was that situation where I think it was 4th and 5.
4th and 6.
And they were, 4th and 6 around. It was going to be about 56, somewhere around there. And
I think it was like a 50-yard field. I don't think it was a crazy long field goal.
Yeah, it might even have been shorter than that, but it wasn't even a thought, that he would stay out there and do that. And I could totally envision Todd Bowles or Adam Gase was kind of aggressive at times, but Bowles, I could definitely see punting there.
Right. No, okay, I see what you're saying. The 4th and 1 was the 56-yarder where they just didn't even consider him. The 4th and 6 is the one where they sent him out there and then called timeout and then decided to go for it. Right.
Yeah, that one as well. So that was a weird situation where it's like they sent him out there, then they took him back. But either way, both of those, I like the aggressiveness. I like the timeouts at the end of the first half.
It almost worked. I can't believe Barrios didn't pick up that ball, but
Yeah.
that was annoying. He clearly didn't know that the clock. I don't know what he was thinking. I guess he maybe thought the clock would stop immediately, but it's like, dude, just pick up the ball and fall on it, and the clock stops at like 12 seconds, or pick it up and you probably could have gotten a few yards. They would have been at midfield and would have. I don't know. That was infuriating. I like the 2-point call. I like the little Josh Johnson package. Maybe they worked on that in practice this week. But yeah, I guess that covers most of it. I thought it was a great team win, a real gritty one that you want to see for the progress of the team, that they can win even if the quarterback doesn't play that well. From a Zach Wilson development standpoint, I'm not going to act like it's a huge letdown. I mean, it's a bit of a letdown. I'm not going to act like it's a huge indictment on his development or that he was god awful. Just a bit disappointing. It's the up and down. It's the life of a rookie. You have to hope that he's going to be on the Josh Allen train and not, maybe the Tua tag of a lie. Tua's won a few games. I'm trying to think of like another quarterback that's had a bad start. Or Josh Rosen, I guess. You have to hope that he's more Josh Allen and not Josh Rosen in terms of his development. So we will see.
I actually have a little bit of a hot take to close this one out.
All right, yeah, hit me.
So there's this one player on defense. I feel like he gets universally panned. He gets no praise for anything.
Ashton Davis.
Let me finish.
Okay.
And for the most part, I agree. I'm not saying he's good, but I think we should give him a little bit of a chance. I think Ashton Davis comes through every single week with really good open field tackles that prevent big gains. I think he's good in that area. He had a couple forced fumbles a few weeks ago. You could see his speed. I don't know. I feel like Davis has done a little bit more good than he gets credit for.
I have to say, this was the first week where I did not hear his name the entire game. And for a safety, that's a good thing.
That's a very good thing.
That is a very good thing. I don't remember. I honestly forgot he even existed. Him and Elijah Riley did a solid job. Yeah, I mean, look, that was kind of the story with Ashton Davis, is that he's also a project and he's just one that hasn't really developed. He's been injured. He missed a lot of his rookie season, missed the beginning of this season. So didn't really get a training camp or an off season. So he's still a young player developmentally, and he's a guy that required a lot of development. So there's still a chance that he can be something. I think the Jets still need 2 safeties next year above him, and that he's either competing for the job, maybe he's competing with Joyner, or he's the third safety, he plays more special, whatever. I don't think you can rely on him. But if he closes out the season strong, then that opinion changes. I agree with you. I think the criticism has to be as loud as the praise. So for Ashton Davis, we tip our cap. I think ending on a positive note, we can get out of here. I think that's pretty much it. You can follow us at CYJ Pod on Twitter, myself at Ben W. Blessington, Michael at Michael_Nania. Go to jetsxfactor.com for the best place to go for Jets content. I think that'll do it, Michael. Any last words? I know you had the Ashton Davis hot take. Are there any more hot takes, any more uniform takes, anything else before we get out of here?
I thought the all white looked really good in Houston, and I'm looking forward to seeing Zach in the all blacks. I think it's going to be a really good fit for him.
I hope they go black jerseys, green pants. You think we can do it for the 3rd time this season? Do you think I can bully Woody Johnson? Well, I shouldn't say I. You think we collectively as Jets Twitter can bully Woody Johnson into forcing that?
I would love to see them try that. Would you prefer it? Which team would you prefer to see?
The Eagles. The Eagles are tough because they're black and green. I think the Saints. I would say the Jaguars would be kind of maybe a good.
Maybe the Bucks would kind of be like Bucks, a Christmas color sort of feel.
Yeah, Bucks would be a good one. I don't know. Okay,
although so maybe they have all green planned for the Christmas thing.
Okay, I don't know. Who knows? All right, let's get out of here. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Enjoy your week. It's a victory Monday. Celebrate. Don't worry about the draft standing. Cheer for the Washington football team tonight. Let's see if we can keep knocking that Seahawks pick down. The Dolphins.
Carolina with another loss.
Yeah, and Carolina's schedule does not get easier. I mean, Seattle is going to pick up some wins here, so that I don't think that pick stays in the top 10. I hope it can stay in the top 15. But Carolina, if you look at the end of their schedule, I kind of think that pick could keep sliding up and up, and I think that second rounder is going to look a lot prettier. So with that, everybody have a great week.
Yeah,
we'll be back.
Wait, one more thing. You know what, guys? Just think about it this way. The Jets have 3 wins right now. There are 365 days in the year. These do not happen a lot. That's like once every 120 days. Maybe they'll get a couple more. So that average will go up a little bit.
Well, if you go
These
the
do
whole
not
year,
happen a lot.
they've had 5 this
Enjoy
year, technically.
enjoy the win. It doesn't. I don't care that they're not in the playoff race. I don't care that there were 2,000 people in Houston watching that game. Winning is fun. Enjoy the win.
That is an interesting point because if you go back to last year and they won 2 at the end of the year, so that's 5 wins out of 365. That's like I'm horrible at math, but that's like just above 1% of the year. So, I mean, that's like 1 point something. I don't. You could do the math, Michael. You're the math guy here. I was hoping that you were whipping out your calculator. It doesn't sound like you are. But yeah, enjoy it. 5 days out of 365 5 days, and 3 if we're not counting last year.
What are some things you do more than 5 times in a year?
Shower.
I hope so.
I don't know. I'm trying to think of 5 times a year. Let me think.
Go to the doctor.
Go to the doctor. No, 5 times a year, Michael. Jesus.
Actually, I hope you're not doing that.
Okay, yeah, maybe not. Hopefully, you're not seeing the doctor 5 times a year. 5 times. That's kind of a weird number. 5 times a year.
Go see your relatives. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. 5 times a year. Yeah. I mean, Jets wins.
Although that may or may not be something you enjoy doing.
Yeah, probably not. 5 times a year. Okay, let's turn that to our listeners. Tweet us something you do more than 5 times a year, or do you want more or less, or the same?
Right around 5.
Okay, what is something else outside of watching the Jets win in a 365-day period that you do around 5 times a year? We'll leave you with that. Everybody have a great week. Go Washington football team. Keep losing, Panthers. We'll be back next week.